Flow is the work, flow is the if you let it, and ease is the it gets to be easy part. So, flow for me, the way I define it, it's when you're fully immersed in an activity, losing track of time. And I specify that because we are so governed by time, and that's what often causes a deep sense of stress. So, when you're fully immersed in an activity, losing track in time, ease follows because it's that sense of fulfillment. It's that sense of alignment. And I say tranquility because it's that feeling of, I really just felt good doing that. Maybe I didn't accomplish something great, or I didn't change the world, or it didn't have a huge impact, but I felt really good doing it.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. Well, Small Steps, Big Wins family, you are in for another treat today. I have with me Julia Henning, a certified coach and lifestyle designer, author, and entrepreneur. She's got a master's in psychology and a background in immersion theater. And I am definitely looking forward to learning more about that. So, Julia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here too. You have a great book called It Gets to Be Easy If You Let It. I love the title and I'm looking forward to diving into it. I have read it. But before we do that, tell me a little bit more about you.
Totally. Well, my name is Julia. I hail from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan. I'm currently based in Los Angeles. And just like my bio says, I came here as an actor, was very lucky to be a part of the golden age of immersive theater in Los Angeles, which at the time was seeing the audience interact with the actors in a 3D tangible world. And in that setting, you actually end up improving a lot more than you expect to be. And I was starting to see that the thing that really stood out and the thing I was starting to get really like critical acclaim for was my deeper interactions with audience members, these more existential conversations and almost counseling sessions. And I've always been known as the friend and the family member that you call for advice. I'm, the person that everyone always says, like, I can just be myself with you. And I'd always had a little inkling over the year that there was probably some deeper calling to be some version of a space holder or a counselor or facilitator. And so by chance, I had one pinpoint story day where I quit a Shakespeare production that I happened to be a part of. That's a fun story. And it was that day that I said, you know what, I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to admit to myself that as much as I love being an actor, I'm not fulfilled and it's not my path that's bringing me that feeling that I've always sort of believed exists for those who take the risk to find it. And so I enrolled, I got into graduate school, Pepperdine University. I got my master's in psychology. I knew even then I was not destined to be a classic therapist. So I told my teachers, my counselors, guys, I'm going to go in the holistic route. I think I'm going to end up being a coach. I want to host retreats and I just want to have this education. And so as soon as I graduated with my master's degree, I went down the marriage and family counseling route. Happy that I did it, but wasn't for me, and quickly got certified as a life coach. Created a business, been working with clients for the last 3 years. And by a chance encounter, I met someone who offered me the opportunity to write a book. And in 2024, I wrote It Gets to Be Easy If You Let It. It was out by December, became an Amazon bestseller, and now I get to talk about it. And that's my favorite thing in the world. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, that's great. I do. I love the title of the book. It Gets to Be Easy. And we're going to dive into in a minute the difference between easy and ease. But even before we do that, let's get the high end view of your book. So what's the message that you want to share with others? And even how did you come to the title and choose on that?
I always like to say what the title was first, because the story, I think, just highlights who I am as a person. But I was in the Costa Rican jungle a couple years ago for an ayahuasca retreat, which is a plant medicine retreat and a very intense psychoactive agent that, depending on what you believe and how you speak about it, for me, came through as a voice, as a message that said, you're going to write a book and it's called It Gets to Be Easy. And I remember thinking, oh, this is a puzzle that I get to unravel because I had no idea what it meant. And around this time, I was really going through a deep transition about what fulfillment and what success meant to me. And as somebody who is very transparent about the privilege that they grew up with, I always seemed to make things so much harder for myself.
Mm.
I believed that success and fulfillment and these things that I wanted were only possible through the hardest of work. And I say it in the first few pages of the book. I was the patron saint of burnout and always punishing myself and pushing myself to do more than everyone else around me. But when I really sat with this notion of it gets to be easy, it dawned on me maybe there was a reason that my life had actually been as easy as it has been. And maybe if I were to channel that ease into a deeper message and a deeper space holding for those who are also feeling this, I could make some good out of my position. And so a year of soul searching led to the one day where I finally remembered, wait a minute, I got this message that this is meant to be a book. So I just started to cultivate some ideas. And I was sitting on a plane one day, and this was about month 2 or 3 of after getting my book contract. And we were trying to figure out the title, and something about if you let it kept coming forward to me. And I
Mm.
remember having the aha moment, and someone next to me on the plane kind of looked at me like, is she okay? Because I'm alone having this download where I realized I wanted to create a manual, or rather a skills for living companion that offered people a permission slip into this concept of ease that I feel like many of us are in proximity to, but maybe we don't accept. And so the notion of if you let it was life could be easy, but you have to do the work in order for that to happen. So it's a little bit of a contradiction. I had to come up with another subtitle, and the art of authenticity and other life lessons we skipped made the most sense to me because
Mhm.
the book is really about authenticity. And I grew up always wanting more life lessons than the ones that I felt I was receiving at home or at school. And I find that, I say other life lessons we skipped because these are, sometimes anecdotes or platitudes that we sort of come across and we sort of skip over them. We say, oh, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, I know that. But if we were really to digest these and interpret them and apply them, I've found personally and through the people that I've worked with that life does indeed get easier when we do embrace these lessons in a more authentic way. So that's the long version of how the title came to be. What the book is really about is it's a guide to embracing ease in your life and helping readers basically shift from hustle culture to a more aligned and intentional way of living. And in the book, I use cooking metaphors to basically guide readers in crafting their own recipe
Yeah.
for fulfillment.
Yeah, I love that part about the books. And I love the cooking metaphors because what it does is it actually makes intangible concepts
Hmm.
easier to understand. When you see, like, I have a quote here from the book, and the quote is, quote, while the brain stirs up the recipe for ease, your body is the bowl that holds it all together. And that's just one of many. That was just the one that I pulled out. I thought that was really cool because it gives you a snapshot of being able to put into practice
Hmm.
something that you're talking about. And the other thing about your book that I really enjoyed is the practical application and then
Mm,
getting yourself back to authenticity, like you said. So
mhm.
you've been mentioning about ease. So let's start there. What's the difference? And your book unpacks this as well, but I want to talk about the difference between easy and ease.
Well, I love how you also mirror back and highlight kind of what the book's intention was. There's a lot of self-help books out there, and I really ventured out to not just give a book of advice. It
Mhm.
really was about personal anecdotes and psychological insights and actionable steps to inspire transformation and self-discovery. I don't promise outcome. I don't promise any guarantees. I promise process.
Hmm.
And so it emphasizes that ease is not about laziness. It's about alignment, permission, and making choices that truly serve you. And for me, ease is an internal state. This is a sense of flow and alignment and intentionality. Whereas easy often refers to shortcuts or external simplicity. Ease is about making the right choices for you, even if they're not the simplest. And the book explores how to create ease in life, even when that path requires effort and growth. But I'm the first to admit, marketing is a real thing. So when you see easy on the title of a book, you're more attracted to whatever shortcut or maybe secret that book promises. But when you are in the flow of ease, i.e., in the flow of authenticity and alignment, life does, in fact, tend to get easier because we're not adding that extra struggle of the hustle to keep up with a version of ourselves or a version of the story we've created that we tell ourselves we need to live up to. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about living in alignment. So if you
Mm-hmm.
live in alignment with your purpose, then you're going to flow with ease into what it is that you're doing because you're in alignment. It makes it easy. Even though it might not be easy, but that alignment there makes things easy. And then when you're out of alignment, then things kind of seem like, well, I guess it's to use a car analogy. I mean, if your wheels are out of alignment, the car is not going to go straight. It's not going to drive the way it should be. And in our lives, we could also be out of alignment as well. So I like that
Totally.
you unpack that it's not just life is meant to be easy per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to it'll get easier when you're living in authenticity and being in ease. So you explain that in your book because we tend to hear that theme out there that says, "Oh, everything has to be easy." Like if it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy, then you're not doing something right. And it's not true. It's just you're kind of looking what easy are you really looking for? But
Well, and
yeah.
what I hear back from that is I wanted to offer people a more candid approach to a permission slip of just
Mhm,
seeing what was possible. What would be the exploration of ease to you? It's
mhm.
different for each person. So one, one version of easy to another is not going to be the same for another person. And what I hoped to offer with the book was more, what if you were to write the recipe of what that means rather than follow the formula that's been handed down to us?
Yeah, and that's exactly what it does too. It walked me through a series of questions where it's like, okay, and they're deep questions too. I mean, it's not
I was a
I'm trying
philosophy minor back in school, so I
Yeah,
mean, I've
but
been
you know
studying
what?
it to
Those
make it
those
shit.
are the best questions to ask
Mhm,
though, because if you stick to the superficial, then you're not going to peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, that need to
mhm,
get peeled back in order to get down to the root of why it is that you do what you do, or the root of authenticity, or what makes you authentic. What makes me authentic, that answer is different than what makes you authentic,
totally.
or what ease looks like to me is going to be different to you, what ease looks like to you. So yeah, the questions are geared to provoke thought, not necessarily do this, then this, then
Right.
this, then this. Although there is some of it in there. You talk about breathing, you talk about taking care of your body.
Mhm,
There's definitely a holistic approach. You mentioned before that you like to take the holistic view to everything, and
mhm,
there's that holistic feeling in there. Your book talks about the triple threat of ease, and I want to go
mhm.
into that, which the triple threat consists of the body, the mind, and the spirit. So I want you to talk about the importance of each of those and how they play a role in cultivating a life of ease.
Totally, I love this. So, when I was thinking about the ways in which I often coach people, I will take them through each of these sectors of our lives because we need the mind, the body, and the spirit to be on the same page for us to be in flow. All three work together like the parts of a tripod. So if one leg is unstable, the whole structure is going to wobble. So when I talk about the body, physical well being is your foundation. If your body isn't supported through rest and nutrition and movement, ease becomes difficult to sustain because those are our basic needs. And if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a pyramid. If we don't have a solid foundation, which for most humans is the body that we operate every day, then we can't really navigate the psychological minefield or the emotional labyrinth that brings us closer to a sense of enlightenment and ease. So the mind, we need a calm and focused mind that allows us to navigate challenges with clarity and resilience. I talk about resilience a lot in the book. Then this comes with spirit. Spirit is your connection to purpose and meaning. When your actions align with your core values, life naturally feels more easeful because we're living in accordance with the vision of ourselves that feels good. And when your body can feel good, your mind feels good, your spirit feels good. We're in alignment with our authentic selves. And that's not to say that you feel amazing every single day. But when you're in touch with the triple threat, you're going to know which one of those needs fine tuning a lot faster and know how to take action because you're in a state of acceptance about what you really need in order to feel good. So I talk about awareness, acceptance, and aligned action. Most people go from awareness straight to aligned action. Oh, I don't feel good. I'm going to take a pill. Okay, great. But the secret of self investment that I talk about in the book as well is acceptance. If we're not accepting that maybe we're not as physically fit or we're not eating as well, then we're not going to stay consistent with making new choices. I'm aware of it, but I haven't really accepted it. I just want change. So you're bypassing process. There is
Mm.
a process in the body, the mind, and the spirit. And when we become more aware of what each of these components really means to us, and we accept those things by being honest and accountable, then I provide you with actionable practices, processes, and steps that you can take to see an outcome change. But if we're not accepting that each of these things plays a true role, then it doesn't really matter, at least in my humble opinion, it doesn't really matter what actions we take. That's why you see people burn out. That's why you
Mm.
people see people not go to the gym for too long, or why people will meditate for a month and then stop, because they're not accepting what they really need out of that practice, or they're not balancing the other two components so that they can all serve each other to have the connection that often leads to a deeper success and fulfillment.
Mm. What do you think out of those three, mind, body, and spirit? What do you think which one would be the most important if there is one, or something that the one that somebody should they're listening to this and they go like, which one should I tackle first?
That's a subjective question. That's an
Yeah.
interesting question because asking me, as we've said, I come from a
Uh,
holistic approach. I came into all of this through spirit. For me, it was about my deeper purpose and meaning.
mm,
I find that fulfillment and success to me equates with richer meaning. Some people don't identify with that. Some people don't need a deeper, more profound
mm,
existential meaning behind what they do. So I would say some people are, and I don't think it's about being deeper or anything like that. It's just what's your way in to acceptance. For me, it's through the spirit. It's through a sense of intuition, perception. It's feeling like there's a deeper a deeper sense that something beyond me is worth exploring.
mhm,
So I will then work on my body to prepare my mind for what downloads and creativity and productivity needs to happen. For some
mm,
people, it's the body. Some people really are somatic individuals and would say, I need to really move my body, be at rest, eating as clean as possible in order to connect to my spirit, in order for my mind to make sense of this. And some people are mental. Some people need to talk it out, write it out. Some people need to really exercise, you know, ideas and concepts in order to visualize how to use their body and how to then listen to their spirit or their intuition in order to make things happen. For me, I honestly think it's spirit because I think that we are spiritual beings. I don't think we're just physical beings, and I don't
mm,
think we're just mental beings. I think that when you're connected to something deeper, that is an undeniable force that at
Hmm.
some point all of us have some version of an experience with. Whether you believe in faith or God or religion, that's not what I'm talking about.
Universe.
It's
Yeah.
more, it's the precarious existentialism. It's those deep questions. And
Yeah.
if we're not asking ourselves those deep questions, it's really easy to live on autopilot. And it's also really easy to lie to yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I asked that because
Me too. I love that.
sometimes no, I love it because sometimes we think when we hear a list of something and we go, "Well, I identify more with this,
Hmm.
but what if somebody identifies more with that? Am I wrong? Are they right?" But the beauty of what you're talking about is that there is no right or wrong. It's what
Correct.
feels correct to you, what feels right to
Exactly.
you, and your path in to be able to cultivate your path into cultivating a life of ease. And I also have to say, I really enjoyed the chapter on the spirit because it wasn't heavily spiritual or religion like based. It
Thank
was
you.
like, hey, here's what is out there. There's this energy out there, and how you lean into that energy and how you define it is going to be that idea of what spirit is to you in order to have you cultivate that life of ease. So I really appreciate that. I come from different religious backgrounds, so
Mm-hmm.
I can appreciate the complexity of what you were talking about, but yet on the same side is that it's not preachy. It's
Thank you.
meeting it's meeting people right where they are, which
Which,
I really enjoyed.
thank you. I mean, it's
Reading
just
on
a
that.
permission
Yeah.
slip.
Yeah,
Everything
it
about
is.
the book
I
is
like that.
permission.
Yeah, I like that. It is a permission. How often do we do things in life and we look for permission from other people to do
Hmm.
it, but there's something different and unique about us giving ourselves that permission. Like you can hear it from somebody else and they give you the permission to do that, but it's actually taking that permission and embodying it into your own soul in
Mm,
order to bring about the healing, in order to bring about the change, in order to bring about what we're talking about, that life of ease. I want to talk about stress.
mm,
And in one of the chapters, you talk about the mind. It was in the mind chapter. You mentioned prolonged exposure to stress. How would you describe prolonged exposure
mhm,
and talk about what the negative effects are from it?
mm. Stress to me is a fun. I like to befriend my stress as much as possible. And the way I like to really simplify it is prolonged stress is like leaving a pot boiling on high heat. It eventually burns out and you end up ruining the pot and you end up staining the stove and you don't have any water. So it leads to a physical and an emotional exhaustion. It
Mm,
weakens the immune system and it impacts mental clarity. So I don't usually use the psychological jargon anymore because that's not what resonates with most people. But basically, when we are in prolonged stress, we get so far out of alignment with our values because we're living in that hustle. We're living in survival mode. And stress will tell you, I need to do this to feel better right now, versus I actually need to stop or I need to pause. I need to mitigate. I need to revise. And often we are so afraid to what we perceive make a sacrifice or to stop and get off the wheel because we're afraid of that unknown of what might happen when we give ourselves permission to examine what's causing our stress and to really take care of ourselves. And this goes beyond classic self care. This
mm,
isn't slapping on a face mask and taking a hot bath. This is really saying, what is agitating me or activating me so much that I am allowing my system to operate on the belief that it's this or it's that. It's a
mm,
very dichotomous way of thinking prolonged stress. But what we want to
mhm,
get to is living on a spectrum.
mm.
How can we, everyone says just balance or just, calm down. It's like, that's not that doesn't make any sense. It just logically
Mm.
makes no sense. You can't tell someone who's having a panic attack to calm down. You know,
Yeah.
it's like telling a wild animal, be tame. And I have found that when we are in a state of prolonged stress, I'm going to go back to values for a quick second. we as human beings only have the capacity to hold 5 core values at a given time.
Mm.
And everybody, we all encompass all different values. You're not just made up of 5 things. That's no. But in every, I like to call them islands, like the movie, the Pixar movie Inside Out with the emotions.
Hmm.
They talk about the personality islands, family island, friend island, hobby island. In every island of your life, if one of your 5 core values is lacking or lower in that sector, that's most likely where you're seeing your prolonged stress.
Mm.
So when we get more clear on what our core values are and say, what area of life do I want to be working on? Let's say relationships. Okay, well, my core value of service is not present in my relationships. So I'm probably stressed out in my relationships. We ask ourselves, what could I do? What action could I experiment with in order to see more service in this area? And I would bet to say, start seeing, do you feel a little less stressed out? Do you feel a little bit more capable, a little more at ease? And an easy way to sort of mitigate stress, everybody says the same things, but mindfulness practices like journaling and meditation,
Hmm.
right? The ways of getting it out of your head, moving your body to release pent up tension. There's the body. Set boundaries to protect your energy. There's spirit. Relieving stress is really about taking small, consistent steps towards the rest that we often need in order
Mm.
to have a new vision so those values can be at play.
I like that. You answered my question, how we can mitigate that stress. Yeah,
Mhm.
because your book really goes into depth about the negative effects of stress and what it does to the body. So you touched on a lot of that as well.
Well, real
Um,
quick, I just want to say the reason I put that in the book is because
yeah.
a lot of people hear and we receive stress is bad. So I
Mhm.
decided to use my master's degree and say, and flex a little bit and go, no, this is really what's going on. This is where I
Yeah.
put the psychological jargon in because I go, your body's literally breaking down on you and
Mm.
you're slapping a filter on yourself saying, I'm fine. When in reality, and here's a little behind the scenes fine for anyone who doesn't know what it means is fanatic, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Anytime you're
Oh,
saying
wow.
you're fine, ask yourself how you really feel.
So I think we try and lie to ourselves thinking that
Right?
maybe we'll believe that it's the truth when we say we're
Yeah.
fine when we're really not, and we
No,
don't wanna actually be authentic in that moment. And do
totally.
you find that actually, I'm thinking about going off on a tangent here. When we tell somebody that we're fine,
Mhm.
I'm wondering if, and this I would say would be my case, is
Mhm.
I know really I'm not fine, but I don't know how to express why I'm not fine.
Totally. Well, there's a couple of things I would say in response to that. One of them being when we can claim that uncertainty and express that, you're actually giving yourself and the other person an opportunity to support you in ways you might not even know you need. We don't need to say, I'm upset because I don't have enough money in my bank account and that fear is causing me anxiety. We can just say, I'm anxious and I'm just going to let you know I'm coming in with anxiety today. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know where it's coming from. And you actually give yourself space to be exactly where you are and you give the other person an opportunity to go, "Hey, this person's anxious. Well, what
Mhm.
what do I possess right now to provide for them or to hold space for them?" And we don't take that opportunity because most of us are conditioned to believe we're not supposed to take up space. We're not
Mhm.
supposed to impose on other people. If we're not clear about exactly what we're asking for, then how can we expect anything in return? But in reality, that uncertainty and that gray area of emotion and not being okay gives everyone else permission to also not be okay. And you'll find more
Mm.
often than not, most people on a given day are not okay.
Well, I'm glad we brought that up. You
Love
talk
it.
about holding space for
Mhm.
others, and I'd like to know how you define holding space. We hear it, there's a lot of these terms that we have floating out there, and we're not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how I would even explain holding space for somebody. How do you hold space?
I was asked this question recently and I started laughing because I saw the concept of holding space get really popular in the media recently. And I've seen a lot of people try to define what it means. For me, holding space is about being in utter presence. It's about being. When you hold space for another, you're saying, I'm here. I'm giving you my attention, my energy, my physical body, and my presence. I'm not saying that nothing else matters. I'm not saying that I'm not maybe going to be distracted, but I'm saying that you are deserving and you are going to receive what I'm willing to give if you're willing to accept it. So when I became a space holder, that was me saying, I'm going to show up and be as authentic as I possibly can. I'm going to listen. I'm going to speak and I'm going to offer the truth. And the truth is a fickle thing. It can be objective at times and it can be deeply subjective at times. For me, it's finding the balance of incorporating both and trusting that someone has come to me asking for space. So I will hold space for them. Someone needs something and I'm willing to provide it. That to me is holding space. And it can change depending on the person. And that's why
Yeah.
it can be somewhat of a subjective definition.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that. I think that's a beautiful way of explaining it. I mean, just to be there for somebody else. And yeah, as you said, it looks different for everybody. You've mentioned flow state a couple of times. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about flow state, which you mentioned in the book is considered the opposite of stress. So I got a
Mm-hmm.
couple questions. How would one start to cultivate a life that's in flow state? And I think we talked on that, touched on it a little bit, but I want to get super clear because I think it's important. Your book says, and I love this quote, flow and ease are intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Flow is the immersion, and ease is the tranquility that follows. I love
Mm.
that. I'm going to read it one more time. Flow and ease are intertwined. So you paint this picture that they are connected, where flow is the immersion and ease is the tranquility that follows. So let's talk about flow state.
I love hearing it back, honestly, because sometimes you forget what you write and then you hear it and go, wow, I remember what I was feeling that day. So thank you. Flow is the work, flow is the if you let it, and ease is the it gets to be easy part. So flow for me, the way I define it, it's when you're fully immersed in an activity, losing track of time. And I specify that because we are so governed by time. And that's what often causes a deep sense of stress. So when you're fully immersed in an activity, losing track in time, ease follows because it's that sense of fulfillment. It's that sense of alignment. And I say tranquility because it's that feeling of, I really just felt good doing that. Maybe I didn't accomplish something great, or I didn't change the world, or it didn't have a huge impact, but I felt really good doing it. So to cultivate flow, engage in activities that challenge and excite you, minimize distractions and create dedicated time for focus, and set goals that inspire and energize you. Somebody's probably not going to get into flow state. Let's say you have a piano. If you've never played the piano in your life, sure, you might hit the keys for a while and feel inspired. But somebody who maybe plays the piano, who decides, you know what, I'm going to play for as long as I'm feeling I can, and I'm just going to allow myself to get lost in the keys, and I'm going to see what comes of it. Often when people start writing songs, it's
Hmm.
often when people discover, whoa, I deviated from the note and I discovered something new. Or my body, my mind, and my spirit were all working together in this activity that when I got out of flow state, it was almost as if I transcended myself. I wasn't tracking, I was allowing. And so I say that these are essential for the triple threat health because they reduce stress and they increase joy and they create a sense of purpose. When you're in flow state, that is when you are activating the most authentic version of yourself. But we sometimes tell ourselves that flow state is only reserved for when we have more space and time.
Mm.
when I'm on vacation, when I get this thing done. If you were to reverse that psychology and say flow state is actually my first priority, let's say, I mean, that's why people meditate, right? That's why people do their morning pages. If flow state, in whatever that means to you, was the first thing that you did or attempted to sink into first thing in the day, how much more do you think you'd actually get done? And how much more would you actually probably realize this is not really serving me and this doesn't
Mm.
feel good and this is not in alignment? Because I know what feeling good to me feels like.
Mm.
And I want to just say the caveat to that. I am not promoting that you eliminate everything that feels challenging, hard, or in any way struggle in your life. We are humans. We cannot evade our human condition of suffering and struggling. Things are meant to be challenging, but the right challenges are what make us feel like we are progressing and evolving. The wrong challenges are often where we see ourselves running into that prolonged stress
Mm.
and getting further from flow. So we're getting further and further away from ease.
Okay. So when you come across people who come to you, because you also are a coach as well, and your
Mhm.
book mentions the importance of coaching, and they're coming to you, and in their world, they're like, well, I realize I am not living a life that is cultivate, that's not in flow. And I know your
Mhm.
whole book talks about achieving and finding that flow, but what are some key things somebody could start to look for in their lives that would help them cultivate that flow state or help them make the transition from realizing that my life is not in flow? I
Mm.
need to get in flow with something. What small step can somebody start with?
Identify your zone of genius.
Mm.
Gay Hendrick has a book. It's called The Big Leap. And it talks about this concept called the zone of genius, which refers to a unique set of talents, skills, and passions that you excel at effortlessly and that bring you the greatest sense of competent or excellent, but where you're operating at your highest potential. So you're doing work that feels like an expression of your true self. And when I talk to clients and I say, what's your zone of genius? I don't explain to them what it really means because we identify where you started. And then once you become a master of your zone of genius, going, oh, wow, I understand how to answer this question so fast.
Mm.
But I will ask people in the beginning, what are you good at? And what do you love? And when people are like, oh, I don't really know what I'm good at, I go, okay, so ask your loved ones, what do I bring to the table? How would you describe me? What do you think of me as, right? We get feedback in terms of how we're impacting the world around us. And then we get honest with ourselves. What do I like doing? What do I really find joy in? And then we combine those things, and you'll often find that's your zone of genius. So, a way to get deeper on that process is reflect on your natural talents. Like I said, what have people always complimented you on? What comes easily to you,
Mm.
but feels challenging to others? Then you notice what lights you up. What activities make time fly? Where do you feel the most alive or creative and energized? Then we look at patterns. Consider the reoccurring themes in your life or your work. What tasks or experiences consistently bring you joy and success, and which ones make you feel like you want to tear your hair out? And then identify the impact you want to make. What problems or challenges do you feel uniquely equipped to solve? And where do your talents align with that purpose or calling?
Mm.
And when you're operating in your zone of genius, you're basically engaging in the act of fulfillment, energy, success, and ease. Fulfillment, because you're going to feel more aligned and purpose driven. Energy, because it's giving you an active boost versus draining you. Success, because you're going to deliver your best work. You're going to attract opportunities and recognition. And ease, because it feels natural and effortless. It's freeing you from the grind of the tasks that are in that lower zone that we often sort of stay stuck in because we're not really willing to delegate or prioritize or set boundaries or redesign or experiment and explore. So you're hearing these buzzwords that I'm saying. These is
Mhm.
a very condensed version of what working in a 6 to 8 month container can look like.
Oh, okay.
But that's
Yeah.
the blueprint.
Wow. I'm thinking as I'm sitting there listening that Okay, so perhaps I realize I don't have this life of ease. And now what's creeping in is I'm realizing, well, maybe there's regret or there's
Mhm.
fear or there's uncertainty in each of those categories. It's like, okay, I want to cultivate this life of flow. I'm not quite sure where my talents lie, but I know they're not in alignment with the job that I'm doing. How do you help people who may be in any of those categories sort of, again, take the first small step to overcome any of those to help themselves start getting into alignment and cultivating a life of ease?
Mm. As a coach, I guide clients to uncover their truths. So it's important because I am not giving people advice on what they should do.
Mhm.
I am asking questions that help people break through self-limiting beliefs and create sustainable, meaningful change. So if someone in that process starts to have those maybe lower frequency experiences of regret, resentment, fear, shame, I try to position and reframe that as great. You have more information about where you're coming from to know where you want to go.
Mm.
That question to me is, or that position to me is, okay, so you don't like feeling regret, right? It doesn't feel good. Most people are going to say, yeah, no, I don't like feeling regret, Julia. And I'm going to say, great. So now you are more aware of how you want to feel. Let's identify that. And I'll say, if you don't want to feel regret over the choices you've made, how do you want to feel about your choices? Well, I want to feel at peace. I want to feel at ease. I want to feel inspired. I want to feel calm. Great. What does that look like to you? And so
Mhm.
we'll take all of what they're bringing in terms of that energy of, oh, I'm coming in and I'm impacted. I'll say, okay, let's peel that back to get you back to the core of who you are. That's just an experience you're having. That's not who you are.
Mm.
Coaching, many people, and even therapy, it's offering you a window into who you are at your core, helping you break down your experiences so that you can get more clarity about what you want out of your life. As a coach, I'm basically reframing the way you think about things
Mm.
so that you can think about it in a more positive and productive way. Regret is a great place to start because we want you to feel empowered and capable. So you're going to now know what regret feels like in your body. So if you start to feel that, that's the opportunity for us to go, here's a chance to do something different.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about that awareness? You have to accept it and then we'll take action on it. I just try to frame it as an opportunity.
Yeah, and I like that you said you're glad that regret is there because
Mhm.
then now you can feel into it that it actually does have a feeling in the body and it's a physical sensation. I used to be like that. I'm not anymore where I'd have these feelings and I didn't put the feeling that I was feeling with the emotion. So I
Mhm.
wasn't making the body mind connection. So it's a good
Mm,
reminder that there is that body mind connection and it's there to help us in order
that.
to process undesirable emotions and then replace them with the emotions that we need. So I'm glad you said that, explained it that way.
Thank you.
What's one thing that you thought would be hard about living in flow and in ease, but really wasn't? And then flip it. What's one thing that you would think that you thought would be easy about being in flow and ease, but winds up being really hard? Ah,
Mm.
sure,
I love this question. There's so many ways I could do or there's so many ways I can answer this, but I'm gonna answer from where I'm at right now. I would say
sure.
what I thought would be hard but wasn't, was letting go of perfectionism. Once I gave myself permission to be imperfect, life felt much lighter, and as
Mm,
somebody who, I call myself a coach and an entrepreneur, but really at my core, I'd like to say I'm a creator and a healer. I heal through my human condition and then create opportunities or create things for other people to go through that experience as well. When you are someone who's focused on perfectionism, it can be really challenging to just trust that what you're putting out there, trust yourself is enough. So for me, once I accepted this is good enough and this is what it wants to be,
mhm.
then everything got a lot easier. And the first example of that was the book. I remember writing certain things in the book and going, I can't believe I'm going to publish this. And I can't believe this is going to be my first book. But that's what demanded to be written. And I said, you know what? It doesn't need to be more profound or more literate than this. It can just be this. And a lot of people resonated with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I thought would be easy that wasn't was constantly setting boundaries. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of self trust to say no, but it's actually probably the most crucial thing in maintaining ease. And in the book, I talk a lot about what you are a yes for, right? We're always moving in the direction of what we want. But I really actually emphasize in most of my practices, what are you a no for? Because when you can say no to things that are draining your energy, your time, your resources, your presence, you're creating space to even just figure out what you're a yes for. And people might always say, oh, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm working on right now. It's that unfamiliar uncertainty. But if I could ask you, what don't you want? You're probably
Yeah.
able to be a lot more clear. So setting boundaries around that for me was tough because I like to say yes to life and I like to be available and I like to provide. But I would say that it got easier for me when I started providing more for myself.
Yeah, I love that you brought up that no is actually a good thing to say because it does provide that boundary for us, especially if either we're perfectionists or we're somebody because a perfectionist will say yes to everything. It's like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get that done. Yes, I'm going to do that. Yes, I'm going to do that. And I'm a recovering perfectionist, so that's how I know.
And
And then the other is what I heard was that when you say that no, you're actually freeing up the brain space to be able to figure out what your yeses are. So you mentioned that people would say, well, I don't know what my yes is, or I don't know what I want. Maybe saying more no's is
say
going
more
to
no
help you realize what those things are that you should say yes to. And it goes back to that theme that we have about giving yourself permission.
permission. Yep.
Give yourself
I mean,
permission to say no. It's not selfish.
one,
It's
it's soul centered. I mean, I
yeah.
talked about this recently. It's a big concept also in the book. I mean, we give a lot of people slack for being self centered, which I understand. We should probably reframe that as self absorbed. A
Mhm.
self absorbed person doesn't always have an energy that a lot of people like to interact with. A self centered person, if we gave them a little bit more compassion, we could reframe that as being soul centered. And everything you do, every choice you make, every action that you take comes from the inner self. It comes from you. If you're not giving yourself permission to be soul centered, then you're giving your power away. And
Mm.
I'm going to position this in a profound, I guess, statement. We don't have a lot of time here. We don't have a lot of choice in the matter either. So, how do you want to be spending your aliveness? And how do you want to be making an impact? Because it doesn't have to be some grand gesture, it can be a small, very immediate impact, but you're the one that has to wake up and go to sleep with that. So, if you're able to really, and it's not just mental space, it's spiritual and physical. When you say no, you're actually giving everybody permission to figure out what they are a yes for. You are freeing everybody in the process.
I never looked at it that way. Thought about it
Mhm.
like that. When you say no to somebody or something, that it actually allows them to figure out to them to say no or yes and give them their space that they need. Interesting.
The
Right?
ripple effect of change.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Absolutely. Julia, I'm totally enjoying our conversation. So, as we're coming to a close, I like to ask all my guests the same three questions.
Yeah.
So, let's jump in. The first is share a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you.
Oh, I was thinking about this recently too. I would probably say, I'm like, come on, the first thing that comes to mind. I have two books and I can never just pick
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah, I have 3 when somebody asks me
Well,
that
okay, I was
question.
gonna say
So
I
go
have
right ahead.
three. I have
Yeah.
three.
Yeah, you have my permission.
Thank you. So I would say the first one was Eat, Pray, Love. When I first read
Mm,
Eat, Pray, Love, I mean, it's such a classic, but I just remember having a really strong sense that I was like, this has a resonance of the life that I'm going to live as well. There's a deep permission slip that Elizabeth Gilbert puts in that book. And I remember thinking, like, it's not just about the glory of eating and loving and all these things. It's about saying yes to the life that you want. So Eat, Pray, Love was huge for me. Letters to a Young Poet was a huge one for me as well. This was the existential artist, the creator in me that, it was okay to ask questions. It was okay to not have answers. And it was okay to admit when you feel vulnerable. That book hit me really hard. And then the last is Buy Yourself the Effing Lilies by Tara Schuster. This is, if you read the title, you can see how inspired I was by it. It's Buy Yourself the Effing Lilies and Other Rituals to Fix Your Life from someone who's been there. So it was a deep inspiration for It Gets to Be Easy from somebody who's basically offering you anecdotes about their life in a way that's digestible and not telling you what to do. So those would probably be my big three.
Nice, nice. What's one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered the question or expanded on the topic?
Ooh, I'm going to hit you with the existentialism. My favorite question is, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? And the way I probably would have answered that was to reveal my more emotional side by saying, my biggest passion in life is being alive. I really like talking about being human. And for me, the point is creating meaning out of everything you do.
Mm.
Like I said, we don't have a lot of time here and we don't have a lot of say in how it goes, but we do have a little influence. So if you're not asking yourself, what's the point of all of this? Then I'm curious what your life really means to you, because for me, it means a lot.
Wow. Oh, wow. That is really deep. Yeah. What's the point? Yeah. I love
Yeah, I'm
it.
an
I'm glad. No,
existentialist.
no, no. I'm glad you answered it that way. You got me thinking now, like,
Mm,
what's my point? You know?
thank you.
Yeah, no, no, that was a great answer. As we close, what is
Mhm.
one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Mm. Take 5 minutes to pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what would bring me the most ease right now? And take one small action to experiment, and honor that and see what big shifts happen.
Oh, I love that. Love that one. Julia, how can people reach out to you and find you?
You can find me at my website, imjuliahenning.com. I have more or less a video game of a world on that website, lots of resources, coaching opportunities, events, and more about the book. You can also find me on Instagram at @IamJuliaHenning, and that's where I like to really rant, talk to people, and show a little bit more behind the scenes.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. I hope you guys let it be easy.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.